Hey, Sandra, y'all. It's Leanne, Scotch on the Bayou. Another Tuesday night coming from South Louisiana, talking about Scotch, whiskey, single malts, all the things. And tonight, especially, is going to be fun because we're going to talk about drinking that whiskey together. And how does that look? And how do you do that? Especially sometimes when this is our interaction, right? And we may not have all those besties around that like to drink this brown elixir as we often do. So, got a very special person, very special, one of my favorite whiskey buddies is going to join us tonight and talk about that because he has some experience and some runtime on doing quite a few different whiskey clubs. And yes, there maybe it's more the formal version, but we all start somewhere. And so we're going to talk about how to even scale whiskey clubs from just a few folks to an all out formalized organized club. So I'm excited about it, and I want to hear from all of you to know what clubs you are in and which ones, what works for y'all and what doesn't, and what your favorite things about that are. So, going to have a lot of fun with that tonight. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat real quick. I see that Pete Head came in early. Frank, God love you. It's really late or early, depending how you look at it in the Netherlands. So thanks for being on and always watching the replay, y'all. So devout on that. I appreciate it, Frank. Always. Jimmy Jazz is in. Good to see him. Yes, if this is your PSA from the folks on the other island west of Scotland, and that would be Ireland. 27 days to St. Patrick's Day. Check out Stacy and Four Leaf Whiskey. I'm going to be a guest on her show in a few weeks, like right before, actually right after, no, right before, the day before St. Patrick's Day. I got you, Stacey. I promise. Good to see. Hey, Mark JG is in. Great to see you there. Peter's in with no rain. I'm sorry. Hope you're doing well, Peter. Yeah, great to see folks in. Jimmy Jazz is always a great host. Kelly, oh, honey, y'all are sending some of your cold weather to us. We're going to get down in the 20s tomorrow. Keep it. We've already had snowpocalypse down here. But great to see you, Kelly. And I will be stopping by over at Hollywood when this next trip coming up. Hey, I missed y'all in Victoria for sure. So yeah, great seeing everybody. Chuck, Malt Minions in. Hey, Mike, another person who came in from Victoria Whiskey Festival. I mean, from Victoria, who knows all about the Kelowna. I'm getting there. He's been trying, y'all. The Southern tongue doesn't always work the way everybody else does on pronunciations. My garlic is certainly not as appetizing as it should be. But yeah, so we're going to talk about whiskey clubs and groups of people, or just that thing about whiskey, right? That we love so much is that it tastes even better when it's shared. And you can, cuss and discuss, or just, well, what do you think about that? Or you can play off of what someone else is getting with whiskey. And it's great if you have a group of people or your closest buddies are all whiskey people. But quite frankly, not anyone remotely super close to me really likes Scotch, or certainly not to the level that I like it. But I've found friends and I've found other clubs that assimilated it, and I found the Scotch people within that. And so you kind of, find your tribe that way. Your vibe attracts your tribe, kind of thing. So I want to right now bring on my guest, as I said, my good buddy from the way up frozen north. And I mean past Shreveport, Mark, JG, way past that. And that would be the absolutely fabulous Chad Anderson. Everybody, big round of applause for this lovely man. Hey, Chad.
Hi, everybody. Great to be on Scotch in the Bayou. That theme music, and I say it so many times. I see you, Leanne. You are so goddamn photogenic. It drives me crazy.
Well,
So,
thank you very much.
yeah. I think anybody that's
Sweet.
taken a picture with me over the years, I always tell them just neck up. That's it. Just neck up.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to still work on that one chin thing, but the older I get, an angle is really important. So,
Yeah.
ever,
Yes,
ever, ever the vein here. So I understand you, but you have like the whole beard thing going, and because you live
I
in the
do.
frozen tundra, you got lots of layers all the way. So,
I do. I've had this beard for so long, I don't dare look to see what kind of condition the skin is underneath this because I've had it for so long now that I couldn't imagine my face without it. Like I really
well, your
can't. But
your people may not even recognize you without it.
no, it's definitely gotten whiter over the years. I mean, I had more pepper in the salt, as it were, but hey, it is what it is. I lost everything up here a while ago, so
So,
you know,
well,
yeah,
a friend of mine told
make
me that was a crop rotation.
yeah,
Just
absolutely, yeah.
but but the thing is, thankfully, the longer that we live, the more whiskey we can drink, right? I mean,
Yes.
you gotta
And
look at it that
thanks,
way.
yes. And thanks to whiskey clubs, I have had the opportunity to try some amazing whiskeys and some not so amazing whiskeys.
Yeah. Um, well, cool. And that's I think one of the main advantages of a whiskey club is variety.
Yeah.
And exposure to that variety and things that you get exposed to that you would not have picked on your own, right?
Yes.
Especially,
Yes.
if it's set up as a blind tasting or even if it's a curated type tasting, odds
Mhm.
are whatever's in front of you are not things that you would have gone out and said, "Yeah, I want that bottle, 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 bottle," and then
Yes.
poured them,
Yes.
took them home, poured them all, and said, "Yeah, this is it."
Yeah, it's very easy when you lead a tasting or someone puts you in charge of actually selecting the whiskeys. It's very easy to be very selfish and just say, "Oh, I wanted to try this, I wanted to try that." But I found out very early when I was actually asked to you know be the tasting coordinator for a club here. That it doesn't always work out that way, and you have other people that you need and other palates that you kind of need to be open to. And I couldn't tell you how many times where I had a whiskey that I swore was going to be the hit of the night, and it turns out to be a dud for the overwhelming majority. Or on the other side, I have a whiskey in there that I wasn't necessarily excited for, but it completely surprised me in a wonderful way. So it's something to keep in mind when you're ever curating a tasting. Try not to be too selfish. Listen to other people as well, because more often than not, obviously we have different palates, but you got some great
Yeah,
ideas.
that's a super point. And and I can think of a couple of instances where that's occurred where you're going, there's no way we're gonna that's gonna win, or that's no way that people are gonna to pick that. We year before last, the Glasgow Whiskey Festival. After that, Roy Aquavite had his tasting, and I mean, you talk about that's kind of a super club, right? All the barflies,
Oh
pretty
yeah,
big super club.
yes,
And
yeah,
those of us who are lucky enough to be able to be there after the festival and do that tasting, um, you know, Tom was at my table. He was in our group. He might be in a bit, but um, the overarching winner was not even a Scotch malt whiskey that night. It was an Indira, the Indian whiskey that
Indian, yes,
just blew us all away. I
yeah,
never for a day would have gone, "Oh, yeah, I think I wanna try that," like,
hmm,
over some of the other things I could have chosen, right?
yeah,
So, that was a
yeah,
blind, but it was also a moment of going, "Uh-huh, okay, don't always presume." Right.
yes, never, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, we're going to get into a lot of this, but first, folks, I see Jerry's in. Great to see you. And Northwest Bourbon, hello. Um, glad you're here. Pour some malt if you got it. Pour some bourbon if you don't. Bruce is in. He's in one club. He's sending tips on how to share with other clubs. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, we'll work on that. Um, So I am drinking tonight speaking of Victoria Whiskey Festival, one of the samples that you gifted me generously, generous samples. Because take a look at what's behind this guy, okay? And I, I mean, yeah, he's got a couple bottles.
Yeah.
But this is I have to put my glasses on because it's too icy writing. Again, get too old. Wrong bottle. Okay. It's an SMWS. Let's say the name first. Big, brooding, masculine, and intense. And it's a 7-year first fill ex bourbon distilled in February 2005 at 59.7. SMWS Canadian, right? SMWS
This
30.
might have been the Canadian release. I'm not sure. Robin Kelly would know.
Okay. 33.122. 33, folks.
Yeah.
Not you don't get many 33s. And that
No.
would be Ardbeg.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was actually Robin Kelly. Perfect that you're on because Leanne and I were discussing ahead of the show that I don't remember an Ardbeg since this one. I don't know if SMWS Canada has released one. If they did, maybe it was maybe one more from Ardbeg. I don't know, but it is very much that. But I think it's actually softened as the bottle sat a little bit, Leanne.
That just it's a very even for 7 years. It's kind of it's not when you think about a young Ardbeg, you go to Wee Beastie in your brain, But
Yeah,
this is very mellow to me on the
yeah.
nose.
Nose especially, it picks up on the palate and intensity, but the nose, you're right, is definitely softer.
I ain't got that far.
I have I have one of my friends here in Kelowna who I teamed up with my
Mm.
newest club, who tends to nose a whiskey. He'll spend half an hour, and Claude. Obviously, you met Claude. He will spend half an hour just nosing a whiskey. I'm not quite that patient, but I'm learning.
Yeah. Taste is a very different thing than the nose. It comes
Yeah.
in with a roar.
Oh, it does.
Super
Yeah.
sweet first on the palate.
Yeah.
Like confectioner sweet.
Yeah.
And then you get that ashy campfire. Mm,
Yeah.
with
Ashy for
salinity.
sure. Yep.
Mm,
Yep.
mm. That makes you want to hug yourself. It's so good.
Yeah.
So, so we'll talk. I want to get into organized versions of whiskey clubs, but I think I'd like to kind of rewind back to a lot of folks kind of got into whiskey. I say that a lot of folks I know were pre-pandemic, and you were learning and you kind of found your friends around locally that might be, and then the world got really weird, and this was the medium that we used, this box, to be
Yeah.
able to relate to one another. And that's how I got to know you, and then
hmm
from that I got to meet you when I went to Victoria. And so I can't underestimate the power that being able to do a virtual tasting or a virtual club where you can actually meet those people who are not next door to you,
Yes.
at a place. And nowadays, the technology, yes, this is StreamYard and it's a streaming service, and we've got all the things. There's Zoom. Zoom. I'd like to see how much Zoom's profit went up during the pandemic.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Well, you know what's hit. You know when it's hit mainstream when my mom and dad actually know what Zoom is. That
oh,
that'll
there you
that'll be
go.
the gauge. Yeah. So
Right. And,
yeah,
and I think they owe every whiskey group a bottle for
yeah.
us
Oh yeah.
bringing everybody together.
It's it saved a lot of clubs. It really did. It saved a lot, and we were one of them. I wasn't with the current club that I'm with now. I was with another club. And you know what? It was a lot more work getting the samples together and things like that. But there
Yeah.
were definite advantages to doing this that I kind of miss. And some people miss. And I know some clubs, once we were able to get back together again, some clubs just decided, we're going to stick to the virtual thing. Right. And
Yeah.
some clubs, they prefer the in person. And that kind of just goes to how just different clubs and the people that they attract can kind of dictate in which
Yeah.
direction they go.
Yeah. I would say even beyond the clubs, it saved a lot of people, to
Oh
be
yeah.
able to
Yeah.
have that connection through
Yeah.
all that isolation.
Hmm.
But even now, we have Google Meets is free. You can do that, and you can
Hmm.
still be able to do. Um, we all know Jennifer. Jennifer's in Oklahoma. She and I meet like this, and we'll have drams.
Yeah.
That's a club, y'all.
It
It
is.
doesn't have
Yeah.
to be real big. It can just
No.
be your bestie
Yeah.
across, the
Hmm.
continent or across the ocean, and have a scheduled time and decide what you want to drink. Find a way for your special whiskey delivery if you want to switch samples and stuff like that. But again,
Yeah.
that's a way to expose other people to different expressions, but also have the community, because that's the key to any club is
Yes.
community, don't you think?
It is. Oh, absolutely it is. And I don't know, and we've talked about this many times, and I know people in chat as well. I've had conversations with them. Is I have been a member of kind of a niche, kind of 1% community in a certain hobby or a certain, passion that people have. I have never seen the generosity and the community that I have witnessed with that exists within the whiskey community is just absolutely incredible. And I just don't know what it is. People are so incredibly generous with their time and with their bottles and with their stories. And it really is this whole thing to me as an introvert, and you probably will hear that a lot tonight. How my social anxiety is really plays into the way I look at whiskey. It for people like me, it has just been an absolute eye opener that you don't
Yeah,
have to be so pessimistic about people. You can have an open mind, and more often than not, I've been pleasantly surprised
yeah,
by everybody I've met. You know.
yeah. I mean, the generosity. I mean, friends of the channel understand that, and they know they know my friend Kevin, that's been on a couple of times, and he has access to incredible bottles, but he tells me I enjoy them better when I know you and I can share them, you know.
Yeah.
And we've done an entire show on closed distilleries. We've done an entire show
Mhm.
on expressions from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s.
Yeah.
Just amazing things. And being able to buy, be able to share that, it makes you feel good. So
It does, and yeah, start small. Don't think
yeah,
that just if you have a group of two people, don't dismiss that as not being a whiskey
no,
club. You hit the nail on the head, Leanne. It is a whiskey club, right?
yeah,
And that's all it has to be. You can expand from that and make it bigger if you wish, but if you're comfortable in that and you don't wish to grow it, then just carry on with that and enjoy yourself and enjoy the
yeah.
company that comes with it.
Because you get so much from that, and you get a different perspectives. Again,
Mhm.
you know, your friends may, uh, that person may like something completely different. You
Mhm.
always try something, and it's okay
Yeah.
not to like everything. That's why we all have different
Yes.
palates. It's
Yeah, I mean,
really
anybody
cool.
that's been in a tasting that I've been a part of or ran, I always tell them like it's okay to tell me you don't like it because I didn't make it. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I ain't married to it. So
Yeah,
Kelly says, "Yep, this Ardbeg is one of the long releases from them a long time ago, and that the 33s are extremely rare. No
yeah,
idea when there'll be a next one." And
yeah,
as my wise friend says, if it's a 33, it's an auto buy. So you bet,
yeah,
Mark, for
yeah.
sure.
An
Um,
independent bottling of Ardbeg, that's definitely one that rates up there pretty high on the want list for most people.
I can't get over this nose. It's just, So Sugar Kitty is in. Great to see you. And Orient Star. Okay. Hey.
Yes, Rod and Karen, how are you? Yeah, so Penticton is where the club before the one that I have now, that's the one that I was the tasting coordinator for. That was something that was a well-established club that I just kind of took my chance and said, "Hey, I want to talk about whiskey." They were looking for someone to present the whiskeys, and I thought, "Oh boy, this goes against everything my body is telling me, but I'm gonna try it." And
You're
it turned
really
out
good.
to be incredible. Yeah, it turned out to be incredible. I met people like Rob and Karen, and they are members of my new club as well.
Awesome.
And yeah, so cheers to you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. I wish I could send y'all some warm weather, but It's I think well, we're 58 still today, but the cold
Right?
front's coming through tonight,
Yes. Yeah.
along with a vicious thunderstorm, evidently. So we're glad we're
Yeah.
on now because we may not have electricity later on. We'll see.
Yeah. And you know what? And I
Mm,
have to tell you, in full transparency, I do the SMWS here is here in Kelowna, and I do run the tastings for them. But you know, the SMWS, they like to say is they are the world's largest whiskey club.
they
And
are.
yeah, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, right there's your whiskey club, right? And
Yeah.
if it weren't for SMWS and the people that I met there very early in my whiskey journey, I would have not had the experiences that I've had now. Just some incredible people and some incredible experiences, and I owe very much a lot of that to the SMWS.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't get really any better variety than that,
Yes,
because you're getting something. That's it. That's that
that's
one
it.
thing, that one bottling of it is
Yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, that's very cool. So up from just meeting your buddy on Zoom and something like that, locally we have a group um where we do basically a bottle share. And so that's one of those things too where, you kind of got a group of people that have like interests, and you say, okay, let's get something really fancy or something that's out of our individual reach, right? That's
Hmm.
beyond budget wise, or that you would buy solely on your own. Well, if you got 5 to 10 friends, or I would even say the sweet spot's between 5 and 7,
Yeah,
um, to
that works
say,
well.
let's split, let's split the bottle. Let's get
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
and summer before last when I was over, I ended up bringing home a Gordon MacPhail Glenlossie
Hmm.
connoisseur series.
Hmm.
That was our bottle split. And talk about pressure. I'm buying a bottle that I'm hoping everybody's going to be liking, but everybody goes into it eyes wide open. We're all contributing. We've bought more expensive bottles and older that were like,
Hmm.
because sometimes you just don't know. But we had to
Yeah.
try it, right?
Yes. Yeah, and then that's kind of, and I'm just going back to, so Ian asked earlier, does Chad find blends that are some of the more interesting drams that shock people? And yes, blends can do that. I love throwing blends in lineups. I also love throwing grain whiskey in lineups and things like that. I know people, tend to be a little more hit and miss with grains, but I think grain whiskey can be an absolutely incredible whiskey. So incredibly creamy as they get older, and better value now than most single malts as well. But blends do work, and it's always about being excited, especially if it's blind. You know what's in there, and
Yeah.
I get excited for people trying it, and we've had many wonderful surprises that way.
Yeah. Mm.
And
The,
yeah, so I
Ian,
do
Ian.
we do something similar to the whole bottle share thing, Leanne. So we have a group of people, and it's actually 10 or 12 people, which Mike, who's on tonight, is part of as well. Um, we each chip in a certain amount of money. For us, it's
Mhm.
$500 each, and that goes towards 4 tastings, anywhere from 3 to 5 bottles of tasting.
Okay.
And we do that throughout the season, 4 tastings, and then at the end we actually raffle off the heels from our previous
Oh,
tastings for that season. So that works really well, and that's been a great way, like you said, of just having these whiskeys that you're like, oh man, I want to try that, but I want to spend that kind of money. And it
yeah.
doesn't have to be 500, like you said. You could
Yeah.
spend as little or as much as you want, but the idea is that you tend to get something that you would normally not buy for yourself.
Exactly.
And then the discussion happens, and it's usually a wonderful discussion of how wonderful it is or how not so wonderful it is.
I like the fact that y'all do like you do like 3 or 4 bottles per the 4 tastings.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, because that gives you some variety where we're kind of a
yeah,
one shot deal. We
yeah,
always bring
and
other
yeah,
bottles to share at the
sure,
thing,
yeah,
but it's more like we're just going for that one. I like that. with a little bit more organization, you can, but not formality, right? So there is
No, gosh,
organization.
no,
There's work to it.
no.
You've got to,
Yeah.
if you want something out of it, you got to put something in it, you know.
Yes.
But doing that to where we would definitely have like a variety of 3 or 4 offerings for that particular time. And what you meet kind of like quarterly or just
Yeah, usually quarterly.
and
We have a WhatsApp group chat that we kind
okay.
of get on. We'll pull certain bottles. So we have different chats for within that group that kind of, hey, what do you guys think of trying this? What do you think of trying that? And we'll vote on it and things like that. I found myself very early being very vocal and very, like, having strong opinions about certain bottles. But at this point in my journey, it's like I have been surprised so many times. It's like pleasantly surprised. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty much open to anything, and I trust the people that are there that are recommending the bottles because they
Yeah.
have, they themselves have great palates and they have a lot of whiskey experience as well.
Mhm.
So I do trust them. But even if you don't, and I can't stress this enough, is this, if you are going to run a club, if you are going to have a group of friends, that's have. If you're a little further on in your journey, don't be afraid to have beginners or novice people or people just
Yes.
coming into the category in your group because they can really lend an incredible dynamic to it. And a great example of that, and I say this sometimes, is that in one of these groups we've been fairly, all of us have been fairly long on a journey, and we had somebody new there, and we bought Smokehouse. I don't know, you guys are probably familiar with the Smokehouse.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep. And we immediately dived in that, and the people that had the experience were immediately dissecting the whiskey and going through it and just getting all the notes together and getting very, very analytical about it. But then the person that was new to whiskey said, okay, well, this is Smokehouse. Well, what distillery is it? And we kind of just sat back and thought, what, that's a great question. That should have been one of the first questions that we asked. What distillery is this bottle? But we kind of got too ahead of ourselves.
Ah,
And we went from there, and those new people can really lend some eye-opening insights. So don't be afraid to have all different types of experience levels in your group, because that dynamic can be absolutely wonderful to feed off of.
yeah, I totally get it. During our uh, advent calendar this past year, there was a couple, and wife was just getting into whiskey, and so we all would talk about what we're getting on the nose, what we're getting on the palate, and her notes were amazing. They were
Yes.
so interesting to where, like, when she would talk, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, let me try to find that." Oh, she nailed that.
Yes.
And I think it's so cool because again, our perspective was so fresh, and there
Yeah.
was no, there was nothing really kind of beaten into her along her
No.
journey
Yeah.
of thou shalt call it, stewed fruit.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
anything like that. It was
Yeah.
just so, I don't want to say innocent, but it was refreshing to see
Yeah.
her excited about, what was
Yes.
going on,
Yeah.
and coming up with relatable items that she was getting. And just
Yeah.
that was great. It was really cool to
Yeah. And I tell people when I run a tasting, and I would encourage anybody out there as well, even if you're among friends, but if you are running a tasting or a group of people or a club, um, just a lot of people. I really thrive on the interaction. I really thrive on
mhm.
other people giving their experience and their tasting notes, because I will flat out tell you right at the start, hey, I'm not an expert. I just love the stuff. I love talking about it, but I'm here to learn just as much as you. And if you lay that groundwork early, so people just don't have to feel a little intimidated, so they're like, oh
Right.
yeah, okay, you know what? They're just like me. They're learning and they want to learn.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I tell them, I tell people, you can kind of see them in the background wanting to say something, and I'll reach out to them, and I'll be like, as long as you're giving an informed opinion, which you are, because
Yeah.
that's the best kind of opinion, because you're actually trying the whiskey.
Yeah.
You're not basing it off of other people's tasting notes. You know, you can't be wrong because it's opinion. And I'll go through the list, and I'll go through the people, and I'll say, they'll be kind of looking at you kind of sheepishly, and I'll say, what are you getting on there? What are you getting? Well, I'm getting acetone. There you go. There's a tasting note. You did it. It's as simple as
Yeah.
that. You did it. You know?
And I go back to that advent calendar because that's pretty much a club too. And there were times
Hmm.
we're all drinking the same thing. All those samples were poured at the same time
Hmm.
out of the very same bottle, capped and sent, and we all got them at the same time. And there are notes that people are having. I'm like, dang, no way in hell I'm getting that in here. But that's
Yeah.
okay because that's their palate and not my palate. And
Yeah.
that's the whole beauty of it. But I want to touch a point that you made is this environment needs to be welcoming and
Yes.
not pretentious.
No.
Don't nobody want to go and be part of a whiskey club when somebody gonna get all highbrow on you.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. That's not what whiskey is about. That's not what this channel is about. The whole
Yeah.
point is building an environment where there's a seat at the table for everyone to come
Hmm.
and enjoy, have fellowship, and just be able to celebrate what's in this, the effort and the work that took into it, and enjoy it and converse about it and just get to know people, and you invariably will figure out what things tick for other people and what they like, as far as their palate, and that helps
Yeah.
you, in other ways.
Yeah, and as an introvert and as somebody who struggles with social anxiety, virtual tastings can be a godsend. Like they can be amazing for you because you can participate as much as you want or have as much anonymity as you want, and not, so I think if you're wanting to test the waters for a whiskey club, or if you're
Mhm.
wanting to see what it's all about, I would recommend, if you have it available to you, to try a virtual tasting, because as I said, you can get a feel of what happens during a tasting, some of the interactions, some of the comments, and you don't have to chime in if you don't want to.
Right.
You can just completely stay in the background and just kind of see till you're comfortable. That's what I did. Not necessarily virtually, but I remember being at SNWS tastings in my early days and just not being so scared to say anything. But the people there made me feel comfortable. And once I got comfortable and realized that, what, it's just an opinion and I'm being honest here, I was less intimidated, as it were. But, if you are a little, shy, and you don't necessarily want to be in a physical environment with people, then virtual can be a great alternative to that.
Absolutely. So Rick's in. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. And this guy, he's doing tastings over in the West Coast now.
Yeah,
Good to see
that's
you,
interesting. Yeah.
Gregor.
So Gregor struggled, and I'm curious, and you had mentioned that, Leanne. So I know Gregor struggled with finding a group in
Mhm.
Portland that actually, a club that he would, kind of was comfortable with, or even he knew of. So I don't know. Maybe that's changed, like you said, Gregor. Have you found a club? Sounds like you may have started a club. Which, yeah, if it doesn't exist, then
Make it.
make it exist. Yeah.
Even if you find your Irishman to do it with. That's just, if you haven't seen Gregor, it's a time for a gram. Go out on his Instagram and go back to like the early February, I want to say, the tasting he and his buddy do. Uh, oh, actually, I think it was for
Yes.
January, for no drink January, for dry January, and he's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
as a Scotsman, this is not going to be
Yeah.
good.
It was
It
fantastic.
was
Check
a
it out.
riot. It
It
is
was. So,
so good.
yeah.
Be sure that you check that out. And of course, he is the loving host of Dram Face podcast. So make sure you check
Yes.
that out as well. Um,
Still waiting for my invite on there, but we'll see.
and speaking of this guy, I have to say, may trump you in the number of whiskey clubs he's in, because
Yes.
I have to say, Graham, as you all know, Graham over in Scotland, I have intense FOMO, fear of missing out, whenever he's posting about these North Berwick Whiskey Club or the Glasgow Whiskey Club and
Yeah.
all of these places that he
Yeah.
goes. There's like, I
The
can't even imagine
yeah.
having
The
all that on my
Glasgow, yeah,
doorstep.
the Glasgow Whiskey Club is like the farm team for all these amazing whiskey celebrities that we have now, right? That's kind
Right.
of where a lot of them got their start, was in the Glasgow Whiskey Club. So, yeah, that I would love at some point just to be able to sit in on a tasting there and
Yeah.
just take it all in, because they got some really stellar palates there and amazing people there.
And talk about a great environment and
Hmm.
being able to taste things that we could only dream about,
Yes.
Um, but we're getting them. We're getting more and more. Let's see. Um, da, da, da. Sorry. So Gregor says that he's found a group of passionate few here, sort of a club. Also trying to create one through the Irish pub and a local high-end Scotch bar. See, he's making
Mhm.
it happen.
He
Build
is,
it
yeah,
and they
and
will come.
yes, yeah, and to your point, Gregor, it's if you can, I know it's beneficial for my new club now, and it's just team up with a venue, like team up with a venue that can bring in whiskey and things like that. And for us, with my new club, we've teamed up with a liquor store. We get access to their tasting room, and we bring in the whiskeys through them. And then what's great about it is after the tasting, we try to have whiskeys there available in the tasting. Hopefully, they are, but they can go out and after the tasting and perhaps buy the bottles right then and there, right? Instead of having
Yeah.
to do a search either during the tasting or after the tasting. So it's very beneficial. And as a whiskey person, I think it really does benefit you to befriend some of your local stores and your local people there, even if it isn't for a club, but just for purchasing whiskey. Get to know them, buy locally, and good things should come of it, and treat them well, and perhaps they will treat you well as too.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. I agree. I'll come up. I'll swing up 49, pick you up in Shreveport, Mark, and then it's a long haul west. But that would be a fun road trip.
Yeah,
It definitely
yeah.
would be. Um, so let's talk about a little bit more organization. I know, so my friend Jennifer, as she started one with her group of friends, in Houston, and it was a pay in to that, and she curated pretty much blinds the whole time, but she would do it around a theme. And it may be the theme of just all one distillery, or a theme of port matured or sherry matured whiskeys
Mhm.
and things like that. So have you done a lot, or when you've curated them, have you done them based a lot on themes?
Yeah, so my previous club in Penticton, which Rod and Karen are still a part of, they would typically do uh, you know uh, their Yankee Thanky, as they call it, their American Thanksgiving. So typically that would be American whiskeys, mostly
Okay.
bourbon, mostly bourbon. But I tried desperately to kind of move away from the bourbon and get American single malt in there, because as we know, American single malt is very much an emerging category, and I wanted to expose people to it early, or earlier than maybe they normally would. So we would do that St. Patrick's Day as well. Up here in Canada, though, where I am in particular, Irish whiskeys are tough to
Mm.
source. We have special releases maybe twice a year where they actually bring in something different. And we would have many people, myself included, waiting in line for since about maybe 11 o'clock the night before, just to get a hold of these whiskeys, right? Because you do enough of these tastings, you don't want to repeat the whiskeys, and there's some
Yeah.
amazing whiskeys out there. And so yeah, we would definitely do themes. I love blind tastings. I love challenges like Roy's challenges.
Yes.
But what I have done in the past here with my club is I cater it to three experience levels. I've got a kind of a novice level, an intermediate, and an experience level. So the questions on the novice level are pretty much something that was very tailored to a novice person, just telling them that what cask is this? What type of cask is this? Is this above 46 or below 46? You're being very broad, very general.
Yeah.
Something to get those people new to the category, or new to whiskey, kind of involved
I love
and
how
feel.
inclusive that is.
Yes, and then if you felt that, hey, I'm going to challenge the intermediate, I would have a set of intermediate questions for the same whiskey where they're a little bit more focused, a little more complicated, and a little more challenging. And then, of course, the experience level where you get right down to the nitty gritty, like we've seen with some of Roy's challenges, which you do very well on. And and go from there. And it's worked out well. So if you have the time and the inclination and you want to do one of those challenges, I would kind of recommend having a set of questions tailored for every experience level that you might find.
Yeah, that's a super suggestion because you know you never know, and everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to
Hmm.
feel like they're getting it, But
Yes. And sometimes, and we talked about that, Leanne, about whenever you're in a tasting, you don't necessarily have to run a tasting, but as I've gotten to know people that are fairly new to whiskey, I've seen those aha moments, those light switch
yeah,
moments where,
that,
oh, yeah, they get it. Like they get everything that whiskey does for us emotionally. They get it. And it's wonderful to see that in action and see it firsthand. It's an amazing thing, and to be a part of it, to think that, hey, I played a part in this person's journey somewhere,
yeah,
and it makes me very happy.
yeah. I know I did the a Glendronach one of the 12, 15, 18, and the 21 for those who wanted to learn more about Scotch out of our bourbon group because we have a huge bourbon club here, enormous, like 700
Yeah,
members.
I bet that's huge.
And we have bottle shares and it's great. And you go to that function and you've got bottles all over the place and then there's about 5 to 7 of us over in the corner who bring the single malts
Yeah.
and the blends, some old blends. And I'll invariably go grab bourbon people. Like, come over here.
Yes.
Come over here,
Yeah,
try this. Tell me
absolutely.
what you think
Yeah.
about this one. And those who don't know who I am, that don't know me, I mean, they'll like, oh, well, which bourbon is this? That's well, you tell me what you're getting off of that. And I know I'm not giving them anything peat. I'm gonna give them a
Hmm.
sherry bomb. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is really good. And da da da. Like, what do you like about it? And then when I tell them it's Scotch, they usually look at me like I'm nuts. But
Okay.
I want them to have that minute of without pretense,
Yeah.
without knowing what it is. And then they're more open to maybe delve into that than just, oh, I don't like Scotch because somebody handed on some peated stuff the very first time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's usually typically how it works with the peated stuff and things like that. And I think one of the things that you should do is like I said, is just and you may be in an area where there's multiple clubs in your area,
Mhm.
right? And find a club that works best for you. It could be just one, it could be all three, four, five,
Yeah.
but find a club that kind of caters to what you're looking for in an experience. Like, we've got several clubs in the area now. We went for years with just one or two. Now we've got several clubs, and we purposely don't try to compete with them. We try to support them.
Yes.
We try to do off months from them so that we're not kind of piggybacking or kind of
Yeah.
conflicting with them. We want
Because some people
everybody
want to
to,
do both, right?
yeah, we want people to give them the opportunity to try both or multiple and not feel like they have to pick and choose as much.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
I got a call from a club and said, you know what, we're in a jam. Could you please host a tasting for us? And I was all over it. I was like, yes, absolutely. Because I want to
See?
support them and I want to support in my particular area. I want to support the whiskey community in a positive way. And so we definitely try not to compete with other clubs, and if you can get along with other clubs, and that being said, if you could offer something to people that the other clubs don't. I know some clubs
Okay.
that do things differently. They kind of work things differently. They kind of do unique things. For the SMWS tastings that I run, we do like a quick round of all blind. So we do all the tastings on every outturn blind, and then we spend maybe a few minutes on each whiskey really quick, and then we come back around and then we dive into them a little more and more. So that's something that a little different that SMWS Canada has kind of picked up on,
I love
and our
that.
mem yeah, our members seem to like that. You don't have to spend a ton of time. Like if you want to do blind, just do a real quick blind if you want. Just zip
Yeah.
through them really quick, kind
Okay.
of get some inputs. How old do you think it is? What do you think the ABV is? What do you think the cast type is? And then come
Speed
around and kind
round,
of,
like
yeah, that's what we
speed
call it.
dating your whiskey.
We do. We call it the lightning round, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
offers something different from people, so you kind of
Okay.
stand out as well. That can help you.
I love that. I love that. Well, Graham's saying you pretty much can find any place, any club or whiskey bar anywhere every night of the week in central Scotland. And he's
Yes.
asking, do you still have access to the whiskey Zoom tastings across the pond? I bet I could find it. I mean, we could test the URL, and I have a VPN, and I'm not afraid to use it. So maybe might be able to do that for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Malt Minion's over on that upper west coast, as we say, right, real close to Gregor, and so Glen Modan, our buddy, he's
Yeah.
our bry. He's our
He's our equivalent to
he's our
Bryson.
bry.
Yes. Yes, he is. Yeah.
There is nobody like Glen Modan, nor is there anyone like Bry.
Yes.
Representing Glenmorangie for
Hmm.
sure. But yeah, that's cool. Now,
Yeah.
Jim Rhetoric says that his wife Mary has started 2 whiskey book clubs.
Oh, that's great.
Where I love that when they read a book and they pair the whiskey with the book. Oh
Oh,
my gosh, I love
nice.
that idea. Give her
That's a
a
great
hug
idea.
for me. I hope y'all
Very
are
nice.
doing well.
Yeah.
Um, that that's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
And Chuck brings up a good point with Glenn Modan. Uh, don't be afraid if you're running a club, don't be afraid to reach out to brand ambassadors. The worst they can say is no, right?
yeah,
And I've done that. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough, like we typically in our tastings will feature 7 whiskeys. And, one thing that separates us from the other clubs in the area, we're kind of lean on kind of the contacts that I've made and other people have made, Claude has made, and AJ, my other co-founders,
yeah,
and even our members as well. And we tend to have a lot more brand ambassadors come in and give the spiel. Like you can only take so much of me, so it's like it's great that they get a break from that. But don't be afraid to reach out
yeah,
to them, and if you do have one accept an invite, don't be afraid to ask them to donate a bottle or two. Right?
yeah,
I found that more often than not, 99% of the brand ambassadors that I've had the privilege to work with or know have been very generous with their time and with their whiskey as well. So don't be afraid to ask them hey, could you maybe, donate a bottle or two to help the price and the cost a little bit here,
yeah.
and and go from there.
Great point. Because I know 2 weeks ago, well, right before the Super Bowl, man, this month has been a blur. Um, I worked with Impex, which is the importer that pulls in Ardnamurchan, Kilholman, McNean,
Hmm.
Glenallachie, Isle Rasse, Lockley. They bring those brands in, and immediately we were talking. I was like, okay, when you come to Baton Rouge, because we need all of these brands in Baton Rouge. We don't have them here in the
Hmm.
South swath of Louisiana. I'm hoping Mark they'll get up towards you and Shreveport and Bossier. Um, and he's like, yeah, I'm coming back in March and April. I'm like, sweet, let's figure it out because
Yeah.
you're helping them get exposure in your area as
Yes.
well, right? And you're helping
Yeah.
them get a solid place. And
Hmm.
if you're working with a liquor store already, you may have those better contacts with the liquor store than they do because
Yeah.
they're going through
Yes.
the distributor who
Yeah.
knows what that's
Great
like.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great
And
point. And
and
you
as a
know it.
consumer, our
Yeah.
opinions matter.
Yes, absolutely. And don't be afraid to reach out to them. And I'm very fortunate working with these certain people. You met James Bourne.
Mhm.
Yeah, from Authentic Wine and Spirits. They here in Western Canada, they represent Ben Romick, Gordon MacPhail, Compass Box, Glen Allachie, things like that. Um, I was fortunate enough, and anybody that's worked with James, anybody that's met James will tell you, like, he is one of the most generous people and knowledgeable people out there. He picks casts that are amazing. Like, I moved on from the Ardbeg Leanne, and I'm, drinking a Ben Romick single
Ah,
cast, Canada
ooh,
exclusive. That it's a cast 21 years old that James picked, but he has
wow.
been yeah, he has been incredibly generous to us and to not just us, but most people and most clubs that he deals with. He's incredibly generous. And, our club, the Okanagan Whisky Enthusiasts, because where I live is called the Okanagan Valley.
Okay.
Um, he hooked us up with Mr. Stephen Rankin from Gordon MacPhail. He's going to be in our area, and the Gordon, Stephen Rankin's the director of
Okay.
Prestige with Gordon
Oh, yeah.
MacPhail, and they've they both have been very generous with not only their time but also their whiskey as well. And we have a tasting coming up with them, and it's because of that, and because both Stephen and because James have been so generous with their time and whiskey, we're bringing somebody to the area that a lot of whiskey people here have never seen at a level we've never seen. And I'm very proud of that, and I'm very thankful for that, for everybody involved in that. And
Yeah.
most of all, I'm thankful for our members because they support this and they want that sort of thing. But if they don't want it, they've got other clubs that entirely give them a different experience. That's what's great about it.
Man, that's really that's cool because I mean, they may not know who that person is, but when you get put it in the context of what they do for bringing those brands in and being able to curate their whole line that then
Hmm.
gets to somewhere,
Yeah.
it gives you a whole new appreciation of the work that they put in for it.
Yes.
We're I'm finished with the Ardbeg too. Man, it's so good. And
It was very
I've
good.
poured your get ready for this, folks. It's all about Springbank Society, 25-year,
Mm.
19 years in ex bourbon, 6 years in Chateau Petrus cask.
Yes.
Petrus cask. People, look at that
Yeah.
color.
Yeah.
Look at the
That
color.
that
Holy moly.
bottle was one of the reasons I gave you that is because that bottle is so divisive. Like it, either you love it or hate it. Like people
It,
are just baffled why you would finish it. Like finish it. Obviously because there is no
6 years.
legal requirement for finishing, but they finished it for 6 years in that Chateau Petrus cask.
It knows
And
got a edge of that acetone, kind of that
yeah,
really interesting.
I'm interested to see what you think of that one, Leanne. I wanted to pour it, but that's been long gone on my end for a while. But
Oh
yeah,
man,
it's interesting.
my ration. You know how many samples I have.
Yes, you do.
I have to have a spreadsheet. I see Drew and Mark are in from Scotch for Dummies.
Oh,
See my
nice.
buddies said, "Hey
Yes.
Chad, looking good, brother." I
Oh,
said that like Mark Broda says it.
yeah, you did. You did. Yeah.
um,
Thank you.
and Graham says that there's often similarities between single grain and bourbon. Yes, I agree with that. So that
Yeah,
transition might be a good option. That's a really good point.
that is a good point.
Um,
And I was going to mention this because I struggle with it. And Leanne, I know you've had to deal with it yourself, and
yeah.
some of those in your chat. What is that good gateway single malt, Scotch single malt for bourbon drinkers, right? I get asked that a lot. I'm a
Mhm.
bourbon drinker, but if I want to kind of look and explore single malt Scotch whiskey, where do I go? And that's a great point, Graham. I never actually thought of that. Yeah, the sweetness,
Very
right?
cool.
Especially obviously if that grain, the
That-
primarily is corn,
yeah.
right? That's gonna hit pretty similarly, maybe a little bit there.
And
Yeah.
when I taste bourbon, I taste grain. I mean,
Hmm.
like my brain goes to grain rather between that and Karo syrup. I don't know what the equivalent in Canada is of Karo syrup, but pure corn syrup that you would use
Mm.
cooking,
Yep. Yeah.
um, as opposed to like molasses or
Yeah.
blackstrap. The
Yeah.
different things we have down here.
Yeah.
And Mike absolutely agrees with you on the Bidromic 21.
Yeah. I mean, and it's something that a lot of those bourbon casks, because this is a bourbon cask. When you get those bourbon casks like, hitting that 20-year age mark,
Mhm.
I find they really start to get tropical, and I love that. I'm a sucker for tropical fruits. Give me a whiskey that has heavy tropical fruit notes, and I'm in love. I do find that with bourbon casks, like the not always, obviously, but a lot of times they hit the 20-year plus, maybe even 18, and they just turn really tropical and really enjoyable for me.
Man, this is very interesting.
Yeah,
I, it it would not be what I would call and this is a spring bank.
yeah, it's all about Springbank Society. So
Yeah,
that,
I mean it's got
yeah, so
a
the,
funk to
mhm.
it, but there's an almost like a pine needle
Very
Um,
resinous, pine needly. That's a great note.
yeah,
I remember that. Yeah.
um, but with thick molasses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Man,
a lot of people love it or hate it. And I've had a lot of people that just fell in love with it. And some people are like, this is terrible. What is this? And I'm like, it's a Springbank.
so tell me about your club now that you put together and kind of how
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
structured.
So my club now really came about as a means of opportunity. I was really happy. I had a club in Penticton, and that club in Penticton has been around since 2002. It's a well-established club with a great bunch of people there. It's not uncommon for us to have 80 to 100 people at a tasting. And they were the ones that I kind of said, you know what, I feel comfortable enough here to want to present, which just baffles me. I would never thought I would want to do that, but I gave it a shot and I did it. And I did it for several years. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. I enjoyed the heck out of the people. But there came a time where I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to let give someone else the opportunity to do the same thing I did, right?
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of people there with great palettes, great ideas, great insights, and I thought, you know what, you would fit this job just as well as I could. So I thought maybe it's time for me to step down. And then at the same time, my friend Claude, who had started another club in town, he was decided to move on from his current club. So we were kind of both in limbo, and we kind of looked at each other and said, well, let's just make our own club. It
I mean,
just
come
makes
on.
so much sense. Yeah. And we partnered with a local store here with AJ at the time that was working there. And AJ was somebody who was very new to whiskey, but was very open about learning and discovering whiskey. And now he is absolutely down the rabbit hole. He is all in. He loves it. But it's important to work with people. If you're going to do things beyond just yourself in a club, work with people and deal with people that you enjoy being around. And it's been very easy working with them. It's been a lot of fun. We've been able to kind of mold this club into something that we all envisioned, and we're getting there. We're still the new kids on the block. We're still very young. We still have to grow. I mean, we're still struggling in certain areas, but we'll get there. But we're
Yeah,
having fun. We're having fun along the way, and I think that's the most important thing. Just enjoy it. It can be stressful at times. Leanne, and those of you out there know that it can be stressful at times, but at the end of the day, most people are very receptive. It's like, you know what? I just appreciate you taking the time out to talk about whiskey and to present them. And I'm like, hey, thank you very much. So that's where I'm at now. And I'm hoping it carries on because I'm enjoying the heck out of it.
that's great. That's great. And even so, are these is was it an open to the public thing through the liquor store?
Yeah, so the liquor store has a tasting room. So we have a deal where we don't pay for the tasting room, but we bring whiskeys in through them. And like I said, one of the
Okay,
great advantages of that is, you like this whiskey, there's a great chance they got more bottles of it on the shelf
sure.
right now. They
Win-win.
offer discounts to our members. So we run a club where we have a kind of a membership thing, and that membership money that we get, we put that towards the food because that's something we never talked upon. Whether you're doing it private or whether you're doing it
Yes.
in a more public environment, make sure you have adequate food and water there for people. I can't stress that enough, right? And
Right. You have to do
yeah,
that responsibly.
yes, be very conscious of their intake level. And I don't know, up here we've got serving it right. It's kind of like it's a course that you have to take if you're going to be serving people. It just helps you recognize the signs of intoxication. Don't overserve your guests by any means. And when those whiskeys are done and those tastings are done,
Pull
we
them.
like to have kind of a social and kind of interaction thing with a little less formal. But we try to make sure that those whiskeys are gone. They're out of the room, and that's it,
Yep.
people are done, kind of thing. So yeah, it just be very conscious of having food, having water, and serving responsibly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, we have covered a lot. And I hope that's kind of giving y'all an idea of, this doesn't have to be as organized. You can be
No.
able to gather, um,
Yes.
I don't even want to say like minds, like enthusiasts, just people who are
Yes.
interested. They don't even have to
Yes.
be super fans, like we kind of all
Yes.
are. They
Yeah,
didn't
that's
seem
why it was
interested.
very important for me, for my new club, to have enthusiast in the name, because I wanted you just to get excited about whiskey. That's it.
Yeah. You didn't name it the, Algonquin whiskey experts,
Oh
right?
gosh, no. Yes.
Because we're not.
Yeah. I always say
So,
that too. It's another thing I say is like nobody in this room knows everything about whiskey, and nobody outside this room knows everything about whiskey.
no,
So let's just embrace it and learn
yeah.
together. And there's been so many times where our members or our guests have asked questions or found information that I didn't know, and I welcome
Oh,
that.
yeah. That happens every Tuesday night. We're on the show,
That's right.
and
Yes.
it's in all this text over here on the side.
That's right.
And I'll
That
go,
right
"Oh,
there.
really?" Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just here to gather everybody to disperse the knowledge. I don't
Yeah.
proclaim to know it all ever, ever. But I have fun with my whiskey
Oh,
people,
so do
and I have so much fun with you. You are just an
I
absolute
do
doll,
too.
and,
Thank you.
again, I'm sorry I couldn't make it up there. Had a few things
That's
going.
all right.
So, but we're
We'll
getting
get
there.
you up here. We'll get Gregor up here. Maybe Chuck. Maybe Chuck will come up as well. He's on the West
I
Coast.
think we need to make that a 2026 thing for sure. I'll figure out how to get Jennifer back up there as well,
Yeah.
because and that in itself, I will always go on and on about how fabulous the Victoria Whiskey Festival is, and the caliber of master classes. That is a way of doing it. Just
Hmm.
going to a festival like that that has master
Yeah.
classes, not necessarily the
Yeah.
grand tasting thing where you're
Yeah.
just kind of walking table to table. I'm talking
Yeah.
sitting at a table in a classroom with a line of different
Hmm.
expressions. The SMWS presentation is always stellar. The
Yeah.
compass box, oh my gosh. I mean,
Yes.
we had three, four different flaming hearts variations, years of, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not going to be able to buy four of those bottles, most of which were 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but I got to sit there and discuss it with your buddy over there in Calgary.
He did. Yeah.
And talk about notes,
Yeah.
and you get that different perspective, and it's all about community, and it's all about finding your
Mhm.
tribe. And will you all agree? No way, but
No.
you can cuss and discuss about this and just, enjoy it, to be able to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that's um that's great. I really appreciate you coming out of your comfort zone to be on the box. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think
Well,
perhaps you
yeah.
protest too much because you're really good
Maybe I
at
think so.
it.
You make it very, very amenable, and as does Chad. I know some of the people here in chat personally, and I know from experience in joining your channel that you've curated this amazing community, and it's very easy to do what I do because I know they're going to be very generous and they're going to be
Yeah,
very kind, and give some great insights as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, buddy, when's your next one? And what's the theme? If
Yeah,
you can
so March
disclose it.
7th. Yeah, so
Oh,
March 7th is
coming up.
our Stephen Rankin tasting,
Oh, okay.
So just to give you some insight of that, 7 whiskeys. The average age of every whiskey, 24 years old. The average price of the bottles
Wow.
is $450 Canadian.
Wow. This is the
There will
prestige
be,
level
yeah,
of Gordon MacPhail, right?
it
To remind
is, yeah,
everybody.
and
Wow.
there will be and this is something I got to say too, like if you can, it doesn't matter if it's an expensive bottle or a really cheap bottle, but if you can give your members or your guests something that's not quite out yet and it's going to be released, that always gets people
Ooh.
excited, like you're the first to try something. So
Yes.
Steven's going to be kind enough to bring a certain bottle from the Gordon MacPhail lineup that's gotten a lot of attention lately,
What a
especially
teaser.
here in Canada. And it will be a it will be a Canada, or I think a BC exclusive, I think, later this year. So he's bringing that. And we just couldn't do this lineup without James and without Stephen. There's just no way. So thank you preemptively to those two.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I need a full report
Yes.
after that happens. And let's do a big shout out and a slanja y'all to this lovely lady, Kim, with her
Oh,
super
Kim.
chat,
Yes.
because we love
Yes.
you too, honey.
Yeah,
You
we
have no
do.
idea.
Yes.
Oh, slanja y'all.
Kim and Martin. I don't know if Martin was on tonight, but I think
I
Kim
did
and
see
Martin
him.
are. Yeah, so I know Martin's he started his own group in his own house with people that he's familiar with, and I believe Kim and Martin are starting their own podcast,
Yes,
whiskey related.
I'm
Yes.
very excited about that.
So yeah, so please watch out for that. Those two
Thank you,
people, incredible palates, incredible
Kim.
people. You're gonna love it. You are gonna love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter talks about he's met people and made friends at the staff of various places like various Total Wines. How
Yes.
many times have you stood there looking at the shelves
Yeah.
and then you just strike up a conversation? I think, Peter, this is no big surprise to you or anybody else, but you can imagine me in a liquor store and someone, I did stop a guy once. I wasn't trying to be heavy handed, but he picked up a J, like the bottom line J and B. And I was like, "Hey, what you got there?" And he's like, "Oh, I was just getting, and dude was getting a handle. I should have just left him and let him do his thing. He was like, "Have you ever tried Monkey Shoulder or that one that says naked malt?" I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Well, there's more in this." And I was like, "You have fun with that, honey." It's just like, because I was like, it was a moment for me to go, I don't need to be an expert. I don't need to impart my,
No. No.
but I wanted him to really enjoy what I enjoyed, what I liked,
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
compelling thing, I've had to tell that voice, go sit in the back row for a little
Yeah.
while.
I have
But
to. Yeah, I have to.
you
Yeah.
definitely do. We were this summer. We all went. Mark and I went over to help the dummies with their bottling at Andalusia, and Kim and Martin were there as well. And on the way, we stopped at Smith Street Specs in Houston. Those who know, right?
Yeah. We know
Unbelievable
Specs if
place.
you're in
So I'm talking
Texas.
to the guy in the Scotch aisle, and I was like, "Yeah, my friend used to live here, and she's moved, Jennifer." And he goes, "Wait a minute, I think I know who you are." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Is your friend Jennifer?" And I was like, "Yes." And he said, "You're Leanne." And I'm like, "I've never met this dude." And he's like, "Oh yeah, she talks all about you when she would come to the store." And he goes, "I think you'd like this and I like this." And I mean, and then I'm like texting her and going, and sending a selfie of the two of us to her in
Yeah.
Oklahoma, going, "We miss you," and all of that because you found community even in the aisle at your outlet,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You'd be surprised in this community how it works out. Oh, Martin. Yes. Yeah.
There
Well,
you
you're
go.
welcome. Martin. Again. That's somebody there who's really worked. And if you've ever heard Martin talk about whiskey, because I know he obviously, like I said, he has his club out of his house, but he's also been kind enough to present whiskeys. That I've been a part of, and he does a great job as well. And he
Nice.
comes from a place that is very honest and very just,
Yes.
don't be pretentious. Just come at it
Yes.
honestly and just be honest with people and have fun. And that's exactly what he does, and it makes it all the better. He's
Yeah.
very good at what he does. Yeah,
He is. And I mean, beyond being a super person, he also his other passion is pickleball.
I
So
heard
you
that.
need to follow at Whiskey Dink, Dink.
Yes.
And I love it because he's exposing two different audiences to two different things. I mean, to a
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
different thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the pickleball people are learning about equipment and
Hmm.
that he's giving them the edge on knowing about. And then
Yeah.
he pairs that with a whiskey.
Yeah.
And then so he's growing both things at one
He
time. He's
is,
so damn
and that's
efficient. I can't
yes.
stand it.
I know, and that's something unique that he's brought to the table, like you said, that stands out, right? And
Yeah.
and great. That's
Something different.
fantastic.
Something
Hmm.
different you talked about. Provide
Yeah.
something different. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, um, Kim says that his knowledge of pickleball is so impressive, matched only by his knowledge of whiskey. Absolutely.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
to mention the fact that he brings children into the world. Absolutely.
Yes, he
He's
does.
basically
Yes,
Superman with a mustache
he is.
and a
He
goatee.
is. Yeah. If he wasn't such a nice guy, I would just find every reason to not like him, but it's impossible. He's just
It's impossible
yeah.
not to like Martin.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yes.
Um, yeah. And Mike evidently is saying that that Gordon MacPhail has an 80 years worth of casks that might be a while before it's crunch time. Before the crunch
Yeah,
hits. Yeah,
it
they,
is.
they definitely
And
have a lot. But Peter, I like your idea. Basically make friends at different places. If it's food places, cocktail, bars,
hmm
different places like
yeah.
that. I love this that you go to the distillery during celebration times, and also Del Bar. That's got to happen soon, one of these days for me.
Yeah,
Sure.
Delbach, yeah.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah.
Um, and speaking of festivals, Martin says that in less than 2 weeks before the major festival season is, so the Fife is
hmm
happening, and then yes, I'll be there for the Indie Spirits Festival in mid-March.
Oh, nice.
So stoked for that. Yeah, so 3
Yeah.
weeks from Thursday, I'm on a plane going to Scotland.
Nice.
Didn't think that
Yeah.
was going to happen, but we are figuring it out. And I'm corrupting Graham, and he and I are going to go on a couple of excursions, and hopefully we will live to tell about it, won't we, Graham? Oh goodness. Well, guys, thank y'all so much. I see that, Martin. But I appreciate your time, Chad. I do, and to come
Oh,
on and share your wealth of knowledge
anytime.
and
Anytime.
enthusiasm and excitement about the act of sharing whiskey. It's a
hmm
big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a big deal. And just this past weekend, I had the opportunity because of that a certain whiskey friend to try a whiskey that was on my bucket list, right? I always wanted to try it. Wouldn't have been possible without his generosity, and it was amazing. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it's all about
That's what it's all
community.
about. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about. Well, friend,
All right.
hang on in the back, and I'll be right there
Yep.
as
You
after I
betcha.
wrap up. Thank you.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Well, guys, that was so much fun. I looked up and I was like, "Oh, we're running over," but who cares, right? When you're having a good time. Just a couple recap things. Yes, Scotland's happening. Before that, the first Tuesday of March is the 4th, and it is the Mardi Gras. So come have Les Le Bon Temps Roulé on the Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday with me on the 4th of March. We are going to be talking about rum matured whiskey. So, Kim, I'm going to be talking to you soon too. But because we have so much sugar cane here in South Louisiana, that just made a perfect segue, I think, to that. There will be king cake. We will talk about Mardi Gras, but we're going to talk about rum influenced whiskey at that point. Yes, Kim, rum. And not red rum, but just rum. Um, that patrons, thank you so much for all the support. We have a new patron, Scott Monroe from across the pond. I'm so excited that he's joining as a big catfish, the good kind of catfish, if you will. And super excited about what's coming up with that. But folks, thanks for being a part of us tonight, being part of all of what we're doing. Big thanks again to Chad for giving his knowledge and sharing his perspective on how to get people to enjoy that whiskey. I am going to finish up the Springbank and say thank you all for coming, and I will see you on Tuesday the 4th during the Mardi Gras. Come wear a hat. Find all your rum stuff, either rum or rum matured whiskey, and we'll pass a good time, I guarantee. Until then, Sandra, y'all.